this is what you're going to find. Let's say intermittent. You have a choice of cycle, which I don't use very often, or static. Static traction is a prolonged hold. So when we talk about static traction, we're talking about a low load, prolonged stretch. Intermittent does more range of motion. So if we're trying to produce range of motion, we're going to choose an intermittent. We normally do static when the person is more acute. As a person becomes less acute, we will go into intermittent. We also can cycle the steps up and down. I normally don't cycle the steps. I normally leave the steps static, so it just steps and holds. What I will say about the steps is the more acute they are, the longer we want to have it build to max traction. So if you're really hurting, you don't want somebody to pull on you all of a sudden. You don't want somebody to jerk you and put maximum force all of a sudden. The same way with regression. What I usually say is if you're acute, we want equal steps up and equal steps down. And in that 6 to 9 range. Now, your min-max levels. This is lumbar traction. That's what I picked. So 50% body weight is a good rule of thumb. That's how much it takes to separate discs. However, when we first start, we're going to start about 60 to 80 pounds. We're going to start lower than 50% body weight. Okay? Just to test it out. So we enter that here. So this is min level. Okay, I usually start out at 0. Max level, bless you. Okay, and that's where I would adjust that. My hold and my rest time, this tells me how fast it will hold, so how fast it applies the tension. If they're more acute, I go slower. Pretension. Pretension is a way to test whether the traction is going to work or not. So if I want to apply a pretensioning, I'll put a little extra tension on the rope. It'll draw the rope up a little bit and just test that load on the patient to see if the patient's going to tolerate the load. So when I talk about pretensioning, that's what I'm talking about. My rope speed. My rope speed, what do you think about speed? I had a choice here of 30, 50, or 100. What do you think works for more acute?
30.
Slower, 30. Okay. All right, the other thing you need to know, when you're releasing the rope, hold on to it. Okay? You have to hold it down and pull out. Okay? Once you let it go, it will bring the rope back. Okay? Don't do this. You will damage your traction head. Okay? If you did that on a consistent basis, and now if it slips out of your hand, don't panic. It'll be okay. All right? But don't do that on a consistent basis. Okay? So hold it in, pull it out to the length you need, and then let it go. Okay. So that just gives you a little tour, and as I go through this lecture, I will refer back to this a little bit if that would help. Okay, so we talk about each of the individual things within this. So there's a lot of settings for this. Okay. But there are some general rules of thumb that will help you through. Okay. Like slow, low load for acute, which makes sense because we're providing a stretch.